What we would like to talk about is about capacity building for networks. I've understood that all your organizations build a different network. And the first question that actually comes up to me is, are there any basic elements that make that a network can be successful?
Well, if you have formulated your shared problem, automatically you will get a shared vision and you will execute it in a shared program. So I think that the basic elements for good networking is the shared problem as the basis, and then the other things will come about. You contribute, each actor in a network will contribute to the good performance of the network.
Okay, no,
Because they are committed to it.
I mean, talking about visions and missions, and we do talk about quite institutional issues, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's about people. It's about
Well, we were discussing before that in a network, group forming is extremely important, that you make sure that your network is not just a loose conglomerate of people, but you actually have a cohesive group who believes in an objective. But to create ownership, I think you have to be more than just responsible for certain tasks. You also have to feel connected to the group to be able to really make sure that you're working fully behind that vision. And there's a concept that we have been discussing, which is called a shared narrative. Basically what it means is that you make sure that people have a space within the network to put down their story, their experiences, and that they're taken serious and these experiences and stories are taken up. Because
it's another theory. Could you just give us an example from Latin America?
And we produced a folder with information about the network, what we do, and we had some case studies. Just from 4 countries, we could put 14 in. And our partner from Brazil, who wasn't represented in this, just told us, well, I can't use this folder in Brazil because unless it has a connection to what we do, I'm not going to distribute it. So that's just a basic principle of, well, they didn't feel the shared narrative within that output.
Okay, so, just imagine we have defined and we have come up with a shared problem. What else would we need?
Well, I think we are talking too much about problems here. I think you can also talk about opportunities. For instance, if there's the possibility to have a new law which is going in a certain direction, for instance on access to land, and we see that there is a tendency policy where the politics want to decide differently, then various organizations from very different perspectives can join together because they see this opportunity and it responds to the needs of everyone.
But what about leadership?
Well, I think leadership comes in on different levels within the network. First, you have the leadership of the between the participants who feel committed, and you need in every network, you need people, organizations, but most of all people who are inspiring, people who have the vision, and they can come from different sectors and they find one another. Those have to be people who know how to build bridges between different interests, between different sectors. So this is a kind of leadership which is always needed from the owners of the network. On the other hand, if a network is really executing a common program, then you also need leadership in the administration. And in any network, this leadership needs to be inspiring. It needs to give everyone in the network the feeling that they are listened to, that they have a say, that their interests are recognized. And the leadership has to have quality and transparency, and to be clear about what's possible and what's not possible.
Do you recognize that?
Yes, communication, I agree. You have one leadership within different types of how you communicate this same leadership, and then it depends on the sector division, but it also depends on the cultural division, because you have parts of the world which prefer a more authoritative communication of the leadership so that they recognize leadership, but you also have parts and networks where they would like a more equal communication and like listening to everyone, more democratic.
As we were saying, we need a kind of participatory leadership, but it's a totally West African owned network. The ownership is West African, but then we are confronted to a problem of the leadership style, which is rather directive and hierarchical. And this is the cultural difference in leadership style. And when you're talking about participatory leadership in Holland or in European countries, it's more accepted than it is in West Africa, for example, where it is more seen as a kind of weakness even.
How do you try to link both issues?
I see two ways how you can deal with it. First of all, you can discuss on the process with them. So the process of networking, the process of leadership, and you can make it an open debate. But the other thing is you can think about the structure of the network as well. Because when you see the ROPA network, for example, it's more a kind of, the spin web network, which already has this centralized idea.
I was also talking about the cultural difference you can have in the network. For example, we work in a very diverse network, and I think it's very important, or lessons we've been discussing about is what you, for example, could do is just openly discuss the differences that you encounter, just making sure that everybody is very conscious of the fact that maybe working internationally, cross-culturally, takes a little stepping back from your own cultural traditions and way of doing things.
You mean transparency is one of the most important issues to
And explicit.
I think
consider in that process of network.
Exactly.
formation.
And
I think, unfortunately, we have to come to an end. Actually, I wish you all much success in your professional endeavors, and I really thank you very much that you have this book tonight. And to all